Your wrists are locked in steel handcuffs. The cold metal cuts into your skin every time the submarine shifts beneath the pressure of the Atlantic Ocean. You sit alone inside a narrow steel room with no windows, no clocks, and no way to know whether it is day or night. Somewhere outside these walls, two American submarines are moving alongside the vessel carrying you. One on your right, one on your left. They have you surrounded from both sides, and they want you to know it. No Navy is coming to rescue you. No Army is preparing a counterattack. No ally is answering your calls. The politicians who once praised you now pretend they never knew your name. The businessmen who built fortunes beside you have disappeared. The generals who swore loyalty until death have chosen survival instead. You are the President of Venezuela, or at least you used to be. The real question is not what happens next. The real question is how you ended up here. To answer that, you have to go back. Back before the speeches, before the motorcades, before the bodyguards and television cameras. Back to 1990, when you were 26 years old and serving as a young military officer in Caracas. Your uniform was still new enough to make you proud every time you wore it. You believed in duty. You believed in honor. Most importantly, you believed Venezuela deserved better. The country around you felt broken. Corruption was everywhere. Powerful officials stole openly while ordinary people struggled to survive. Even inside the military, you watched senior officers abuse their positions for personal gain. Every day you saw evidence that the system was rotten. But unlike many others, you refused to become cynical. You genuinely believed good people could still change the country. When a new political movement began promising justice, equality, and reform, you embraced it completely. Like millions of others, you believed this was Venezuela's chance to start over. As the years passed, you worked harder than anyone around you. Promotions came one after another. Captain, Major, Colonel. Every step upward felt like proof that integrity still mattered. Every new responsibility convinced you that you were helping build a better future. Then one evening, a businessman entered your office carrying a folder. Inside were shipping documents requiring your signature. At first glance, they looked routine. Cargo manifests, transportation permits, customs approvals. But something felt wrong. When you asked what exactly was being transported, the businessman smiled and said, "Construction materials." You stared at him. He stared back. Then he slowly slid an envelope across your desk. You did not need to open it. You already knew what was inside. Money. More money than your monthly salary. More money than most people earned in an entire year. You told yourself you would refuse. You told yourself you were different from the others. But then you thought about your family, your future, and the opportunities that money could provide. You convinced yourself it was only paperwork. Just one signature. Nothing more. Your hand reached for the pen. Years later, you would realize that this single moment changed everything. At first, the requests remained small. A shipping approval here, a cargo clearance there. Every time you cooperated, another envelope arrived. Every time you accepted, saying no became more difficult. Gradually, you stopped asking questions because you already knew the answers. The shipments were not construction materials. They were not agricultural equipment. They were not medical supplies. Yet the money kept flowing and the people involved kept becoming more powerful. By the time you fully understood what you had become part of, walking away no longer felt possible. Too many influential people knew your name. Too many careers depended on your silence. So you continued. The system rewarded loyalty, not honesty. As long as you delivered results, you were protected. You became known as a man who could solve problems, a man who could make obstacles disappear, a man trusted with sensitive operations that never appeared in official records. The higher you climbed, the more you discovered that politics was nothing like the speeches given on television. Publicly, leaders talked about ideals. Privately, they talked about power. Publicly, they promised justice. Privately, they discussed influence, leverage, and control. You learned the language of power and soon became fluent in it. Years passed. Your influence expanded. You entered politics directly and became one of the most important figures in the country. Television cameras followed your every move. Reporters quoted your speeches. Crowds cheered when you appeared in public. You convinced yourself that despite all the compromises, you were still helping Venezuela. Every questionable decision had a justification. Every moral line crossed had a reason. That is how corruption works. It never arrives as evil. It arrives disguised as necessity. One compromise becomes 10. 10 become 100. 100 become 1,000. Eventually, you stop noticing them. By the mid-2020s, your power had reached extraordinary levels. You possessed wealth beyond imagination. Private jets, luxury estates, offshore accounts, political influence stretching across continents, security teams that answered only to you. Yet with every new advantage came new enemies. Governments collected information. Intelligence agencies collected information. Rivals collected information. Former allies collected information. The higher you climbed, the more people waited for your downfall. At first, the warnings were subtle. Strange phone calls, trusted associates acting distant, meetings canceled without explanation. Then came reports that investigations were expanding, evidence was being shared, files were moving between agencies. Your name appeared more frequently than ever. The walls were beginning to close in. You reached out to allies for protection. Some never answered. Others offered excuses. The truth slowly became impossible to ignore. You were valuable while useful. Now you were becoming a liability, and liabilities are abandoned. Panic replaced confidence. For years you believed you controlled events. Now events controlled you. You prepared escape plans, alternative passports, emergency bank accounts, secret routes out of the country. You told yourself that if things became dangerous enough, you could disappear overnight. But history rarely follows contingency plans. One night, everything collapsed. Security alarms erupted throughout your compound. Staff members ran through hallways shouting conflicting reports. Helicopters, explosions, communications failures. Your carefully constructed world began falling apart in real time. You rushed toward a secure room deep inside the property. The room designed to protect you from coups, assassinations, and invasions. For a few brief moments, you convinced yourself that you still had options. Then the doors exploded inward. A flash of blinding light filled the room. Armed operators emerged from the smoke. Commands echoed through the darkness. The operation ended before you fully understood it had begun. Power vanished with shocking speed. One moment you were among the most influential men in South America. The next moment your hands were restrained behind your back. No speeches, no negotiations, no authority, just handcuffs. Hours later you were transported out of the country. Days later, you stood before a judge while cameras from around the world documented your fall. The same media that once celebrated your victories now broadcast your defeat. Lawyers argued. Prosecutors presented evidence. Commentators debated your legacy. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone claimed they always knew how the story would end. Eventually, prison became your new reality. Concrete walls replaced presidential palaces. Steel doors replaced motorcades. Silence replaced applause. For the first time in decades, you were alone with your thoughts, and every night your mind returned to the same memory. A young military officer standing in Caracas with genuine belief in his heart. A man who wanted to save his country. A man who believed he could become a hero. You wondered when that man disappeared. Was it the first envelope? The first compromise? The first secret? The first moment you chose ambition over principle? You searched for answers, but prison offered plenty of time and very few conclusions. Eventually, you realized something far more uncomfortable. You did not wake up one morning and decide to become the man sitting in that cell. You became him one decision at a time, one rationalization at a time, one compromise at a time. Every choice seemed small when viewed alone. Together they built an entirely different future. Now, sitting beneath fluorescent lights that never truly went dark, you finally understood something that power had hidden from you for decades. The young officer never really dreamed of becoming president. He never dreamed of wealth, influence, or fear. He dreamed of making a difference. He dreamed of helping people. He dreamed of becoming a hero. And somewhere along the way, while chasing power, you lost the very thing you were trying to protect: yourself.